Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. Joe Samaniego, along with Isha Azim from Racing with Isha. Definitely got a lot to talk about today. You can see the tracker, all the races we're going to be discussing, and of course, a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. You too can invest in the Grid Network. You get some Grid Network stickers sent out to you, and of course, you can do Buy Me a Coffee or YouTube Super Chat, $10 or more. You'll get some Grid Network stickers mailed out, and of course, our brand new YouTube membership. Sign up. Definitely, we thank you for all supporting us. And of course, the simplest way, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Don't miss any of our programs. And visit our articles at gridranking.com, especially when we're at the track. We got a couple of races. We're going to be at the track coming up later this year. And of course, we've already, Isha has had Jackson at a couple tracks this year, both of them for IndyCar. One of the races we're going to be at, Formula E. Let's start with Formula E and the Berlin E-Prix.
That's right, Joe. Starting the show off with Formula E, an action-packed ABB Formula E Grand Prix saw Nick Cassidy come from nowhere to win. Now, Jean-Eric Verne and Oliver Rowland rounded out the podium finishers, and we know that a brand new track layout is here in Berlin. We saw the Peloton, which is a lot of pack racing. Now, all the drivers said that it was a stressful and intense race to stay up front. So, Joe, were you happy with the on-track product, or do you prefer the previous layout, which made less pack racing?
I personally prefer the prior layout where we had less of the pack race. And one of the big things I saw with this race, we had the big pack race, and I felt this track was almost designed to maximize the amount of pack racing we saw at the track. Essentially, we saw where you had the big packs. It was hard to get away without using up all your energy. One of the big things I think is a concern for a lot of drivers is this is becoming a little bit more and more feeling like a bit of almost like a lottery, because with these pack races, one mistake, wrong place, wrong time, and you're out of the race. That's what happened to Lucas Degrassi, Maximilian Gunther. They were just the wrong place, wrong time, contact with somebody else, somebody that's behind you. A lot is out of your control. Formula E, we did not have this prior generations, and especially here at Berlin with this new track layout, I think it really just maximized that Peloton effect. Overall, I'm thinking we would like to see probably more of the racing where we had in the past, where you're going to have a race where the best cars, the best drivers that are good at energy management are going to pull away towards the front. For the drivers that are struggling, yeah, they're going to be in the back. But that's where I think we should have some races, not all races, where you have this Peloton effect. Portland, I think, was a good example where last year it was just one big pack lap after lap. Now we're seeing this much more frequently. I get it. This is good for a team like Mahindra, which we'll talk about later on, or Diaz Penske, or some of the other drivers that were up in the top 10. Gets a little bit that fun effect of, hey, we can score points. But really, this is starting to become much more of a pattern. I guess the question is, does Formula E really want this to be the identity of the series where we're not only electric racing, but most of our races or all of our races are this pack style racing? Visually, it looks great. If you're a fan there, the term, as we often say, the casual fan, you may see this as very exciting, but for the racing development, for people talk about strategy, I feel like this is where it's starting to lose a little bit of that standout recognition when it's just mostly pack racing after pack racing.
Yeah, definitely. Those are some great points you made. And if we now take a look at the podium, we have three different powertrains on the podium: Jaguar, DS, and Nissan. Porsche was always in the lead. This race, like Portland, had who would win with 5 laps to go. So, Joe, do you sense any advantage by any powertrains in the Peloton tracks? And if not, do you think the powertrain suppliers prefer races where the field is just about neutralized?
I think if I was one of those powertrain companies, I would prefer the old way where we didn't have so much of the Peloton style racing so often. One of the big reasons why is it's almost out of your control where, you're not seeing the full advantage of the Peloton racing, bunching up everyone compared to before. It was really okay. You had a great powertrain, you were going to get up towards the front and pull away, get the win. We're not seeing that so much. So, in a way, I think for the powertrain companies, This is sort of a disadvantage where you're not showing your strengths. If you have a lousy powertrain unit and you're really reliant on the Peloton racing style, this is going to help you out because you're more likely to score points. This is just one of those deals where I feel Formula E, I think, should be talking to the powertrain manufacturers. What direction of the sport do they want to see? Because if this is something they want to see, where hey, we don't mind it where everyone's close because it's visually a great product, and one of the big things, the product, the fans are happy, more fan interest in Formula E. Okay, might be good for business for them. But if they really want to demonstrate, like, look, we have the best powertrain, Jaguar powertrain. Last year, they were looking really strong with the Jaguar team, the Envision Racing team up towards the front all the time. Now, Nick Cassidy, yeah, he's having a good season. Mitch Evans got to win too. But the Envision team, no luck whatsoever. A lot of it, I think, is because of the Peloton style racing. They're not having that kind of luck. So overall, I think it is going to be something where if we are to see some changes, it might be driven from the powertrains, but if the powertrain companies, the manufacturers are happy with the on-track product, then I think it's going to be more of the same. Despite we know some drivers don't like the style of racing.
Yeah, definitely. And now with this type of racing, there were also some surprises that we saw when it came to scoring points, and that included Mahindra. Now, Eduardo Mortara had a top 10 finish and he scored some points after taking the pole today. Jordan King was in for Nick DeVries. So, Joe, do you think Mahindra is starting to rebound and put together a strong second half of the season?
It certainly appears like that's the case going on right now because Mahindra, Pole, Eduardo Montoya has always been talented, I feel. There's no reason why he was unable to get points except the equipment was not there for him. He has gotten to point contention year after year, championship contentions with a team that a lot of folks felt was sort of below the big teams. Now that he's getting up there, getting the points, that momentum could be building. That confidence in the team, in the equipment could be really building up. And I think this is just a big win for the Mahindra team to get some points. Nick DeVries, I'm confident he's going to be able to get points. He probably was very likely to get points today had he been in the race. Of course, Jordan King in the race. Anytime you got a substitute driver, just finishing the race is a big goal, especially at this kind of style of racing where you don't get a whole lot of Peloton racing outside of Formula E in Europe. So Mahindra, I think they could be rebounding. I think it's a little bit overdue. I was hoping they will rebound a little bit faster. Still crazy to me to think that they just finally got points on the board for the drivers and for the team itself. But at the end of the day, this is a good step in the right direction. The big question I think we're going to be asking ourselves is after this race weekend, when we get to Shanghai, where do they stack up? Because that's going to be a very interesting track. Portland, that could be a wild card. London, I think is going to be one of those tracks where we will know for sure where Mahindra is compared to now, where it looks like they're rebounded, but we still got to wait and see.
Yep, definitely. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow, only three drivers can mathematically leave with the points lead, and that includes Nick Cassidy, Pascal Wehrlein, and Oliver Rowland. Now, everyone is still mathematically alive in the point standings entering tomorrow. However, there are only 7 races tomorrow, and that includes Shanghai, Portland, and London. So, Joe, with this racing style, do you think we could see more contracts, more aggressive moves, and drivers who are angry at each other? It sounds a bit like we're talking about NASCAR right now.
It does. And it's really interesting just seeing how this product has evolved over the years. The prior generation, I felt we saw so much beating and banging at times, especially when NASCAR had the prior generation car. I felt like, okay, we're getting more beating and banging than some of the NASCAR races, especially in the old mile and a half ovals with the old packages. This time with this car, I felt we've seen a little bit less of the beating and banging that we've gotten so used to with Formula E in the past. But now we're adding in more Peloton style racing, the pack racing. Overall, this style racing, we're seeing minor contact here and there. Today was a good example with Lucas deGrassi, Max Gunther having trouble where major contact could ruin your day. If this is to continue throughout the year, no doubt we're going to be seeing drivers making aggressive moves to try to climb up the standings because, as you said, everybody's still mathematically eligible. So if you're a driver like Eduardo Montoya, making a big move to try to get the lead, if it pays off and you win, you're going to climb up a ton of points compared to if it doesn't work out and you fall down to a top 10 finish. It's worth the risk at that point compared to if you're Nick Cassidy, you're not going to be making that risk. When you got drivers making these kind of moves, especially in desperate situations, this is where you're going to see drivers starting getting mad at each other because they're driving not as they usually drive with the respect level. So I do think we're going to see some tempers flaring. Of course, one of the drivers I think of off the top of my head is in that Envision Wrestling scene, Sebastian Buemi. He has been known to have a hot temper if somebody raises him wrong in his opinion. So he could easily be one of the drivers that's going to get ticked off if somebody makes a desperate move and ruin his day. Also, I think up front too, John Eric Verne, he's not afraid to stand up if he feels somebody did him wrong. And Antonio Felix da Costa, he is super aggressive. He can make moves to go for the win. He's not afraid to mess up, and he's willing to play the team game. So if we have a situation where Pascal Wehrlein is leading the race and he could hold up the traffic, he could potentially do that. And that'll just get a lot of folks angry. So yes, with this second half of the season left, it does seem like we're going to be seeing more contact, more aggressive moves. The drivers, there's some of them that will really not stand it, especially if it ruins their day. And I think this could create rivalries and good storylines for the second half of the season as we approach Shanghai, where this championship will always be the storyline, but then it's going to be the drivers that are facing elimination mathematically from the championship. Portland, this is your big last wild card race. Try to go there, get the wins. But if we have some storylines of which drivers are mad at each other, that could just add on to the intensity of the weekend and then the championship weekend. Shaping up to be a pretty good second half of the season, despite only 3 race weekends, but all of them double headers.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to be certainly interesting to see what ends up happening with this racing style. But now I've got one final question for you, Joe. So we had 6 laps that were added to the race due to the safety car. Since Formula E switched from a timed race to a fixed number of laps, laps would be added depending on how long the safety car is out. Now, with today's race, the race would have ended under the regular lap count, not entered into an overtime period. So, overall, what do you think of this rule, which adds laps and extends the race anytime a safety car is out on the track?
Overall, I feel the rule, it does guarantee that we're going to have, to the best effort, a race that finishes under green flag conditions. Now, granted, we've seen it where at times the yellow flag will come out on the last laps or the extended laps, race is over. But the big thing I feel with this rule, and this is sort of where I have a little bit of an issue with this rule. We know the teams generally have an idea when there's a safety car, we're going to look at maybe between 2, 3, or 4 laps being added. 6 laps added today, that was a huge amount. And I just can't help but think, okay, we would have finished this race under regulations if the safety car just came on in. Rather than adding those 6 laps, where again, that puts all the teams and drivers to be in this energy conserving mode, which generates a peloton race. And what's wrong with the idea that, okay, we have a safety car? This changes the strategy of the race, and now we're going to be racing full out, use up your energy to the finish. This is where I think we could see the strengths and weaknesses of the different powertrains, what the other drivers have to their advantage and disadvantage. I think we're missing out on that element when we have the safety car come out and we're adding new laps, not only to ensure that we still have more racing for the fans and attendants, but keep the drivers in the same energy conservation mode. I think we've seen it past where we had a safety car come out and then no more worries about saving energy. Phenomenal, hard, aggressive racing. I think fans will love to see that, especially if we have a late safety car and then it's okay. You don't have the Peloton effect, but now you maybe have 3 or 4 cars just making big moves, trying to fight for the win, potential more mistakes. I think that's a great product. So I think we are missing out on that aspect of the product. Overall, it's not the same such as a NASCAR overtime where the safety car comes out late, we add some laps to get a green flag finish. This is just more, we got a safety car to replace the time lost in racing, we're going to add it on. In theory, it looks great, but I feel the purpose of it to where we continue to have the drivers be in energy conservation mode rather than we have a safety car. Now you could use up more energy, be more aggressive. I think we're missing that aspect, and I think should be evaluated a little bit more because I would love to see where we have a safety car, you have a handful of laps, but all the teams are telling their drivers no more energy conservation, go for it. Be really, I think, a good break from the Peloton style racing and really be interesting to see who could come out on top, especially if drivers make mistakes. It could really shuffle the order and the finish. So I think that is something they should be considering for hopefully next season.
Yes, Joe, that's definitely an interesting way to think about it. And I think that Formula E does have a few different options that they could take a look at. But with that being said, now that is all for our Formula E section. Let us now switch over to IndyCar. So, the Indianapolis Grand Prix is today, and Alex Palou is trying to win this weekend and to take home the first points win of the year. Now, he is on the pole and trying to get another win here, but alongside him is Christian Lundgaard. And row two has the Team Penske drivers Will Power and Joseph Newgarden. Now, Palou is 3 points behind Colton Herta in the point standings, and Herta is standing at 24th place. As I mentioned, Will Power, who is 2 points ahead of Palou, is in row two, so he or Palou can claim the points lead. So, Joe, how do you think Colton Herta will approach this race? Do you think he's going to try to go for damage control to keep the points lead, or is he just going to run his race?
The smart thing to do is just run your race. Don't go out there, try to be a hero, and mess up. Now, with that said, he has a viral moment here where he was dead sideways on slick tires in the wet conditions, saved it, went on, and took the win. That was a huge drive, and I thought a lot of people anticipated then he was going to go on a championship effort. That didn't materialize. If he wants to go on a championship drive, this is not the racetrack to go out there, try big hero moves on that first lap, first corner, put yourself in a situation where you're going to get damaged, out of contention, and score less points. IndyCar, remember, every single position scores some points. If you lead a lap, you get a bonus point. Run a race, try to be on a different strategy, and then let the race evolve around you. That's the best thing Colton Herta could do. Just start picking off the positions early on as he can. Not force the issue. This is quite a long race. As conditions change, the competition, whether it's drivers falling out because of contact with somebody else or mechanical issues. We saw Pato O'Ward has some mechanical issues in warm-ups. This is your opportunity to keep gaining those points and positioning yourself. A good day, you're going to be in the top 10. That's going to lessen the blow, especially if Alex Palou gets a two in a row here and wins. But if you make a mistake and you find yourself finishing again 20th or worse, and Alex Palou, let's just say, finishes second or third or fourth, he's going to have the points lead and a bigger advantage over you compared to if you just race your way towards the top 10. Podium will be a huge effort. I think the big thing for that Ready team, the strategies over there in that Ready Global, remind Colton Herta, we're only 3 races into the season. You have the points lead. Let's go out there, run our own race. You're not racing against a driver that's 2 or 3 positions ahead of you. You're not racing to try to get 2 to win. You're just racing to gain the 1 position, one at a time, lap by lap. We, the pit crew, will do our job, put you in good spots. You just got to run a smart race. Do not crash out, which a lot of people feel Colton Herta has a reputation of doing so in these kind of situations.
Yep, definitely. And now, if we take a look at Theo Pourchaire and McLaren, he is starting in 18th after being announced as the new full time driver of the number 6 McLaren. Now, David Malukas is out of a ride with McLaren and he is still recovering from his wrist injury. So, Joe, Theo is the highest starting rookie and appears to be pursuing a career in IndyCar. Currently, he's also a reserve driver with Sauber F1, which is pointless this season and changing to Audi in the future. So, how important is this opportunity for Theo in his career? And do you think an F1 seat can still be in the cards for him?
I think this really shows what McLaren has been trying to do for a long time and the importance of you're in McLaren, take this very seriously compared to, and no disrespect to the other teams, anytime you're in IndyCar or in a major organization like McLaren and Ready, that's a big role. You take it seriously. But look at what happened the last weekend over in Miami. Lando Norris got that win. McLaren, this year, they have a win in Formula E, IndyCar, granted, because of Joseph Newgarden getting disqualified, and Formula One. That's the only team that could brag about that. They got podiums in Extreme and a podium in F1 Academy. When you're joining McLaren, it shouldn't be seen as just you're going to be in the IndyCar seat. That might be what you signed up for, but there's the potential you can move up to the Formula One seat. You can maybe transfer over to Formula E. If you want to do Extreme E as a guest drive, that's great. If you're in the F1 Academy, even you perform well, you got 3 different series Formula E, IndyCar, F1 routes. McLaren is setting up to be a big super team effort where you signed up, the sky's the limit. So F1, especially if Oscar Piastri continues to be the number 2 driver, doesn't live up to the potential, that seat could open up. Now, of course, nothing is a sure thing. Still, though, an IndyCar seat with McLaren, if Theo was to have a good, successful rest of the season, come back next year, run the Indianapolis 500, we've seen how big the Indianapolis 500 is becoming worldwide again since the merger of IndyCar and the Indy Racing League. This is going to be a huge opportunity for Theo Pourchaire to go out there, log the laps. If he could get podium finishes, people are going to forget about David Malukas and what he went through. It's unfortunate, but I think one of the big things when you look at McLaren, this is a huge organization. You're not just an IndyCar driver. There's so much room and potential, and so many drivers are now want to be in McLaren. David Malukas, nice guy. We've talked to him. It's just a really tough break, but at the end of the day, you cannot get yourself injured in a sport where it was approved or unapproved by McLaren, miss out and be assured that your seat will still be there. No, this is motorsports. A seat in McLaren could be a seat in a winning F1 car someday or Formula E car. You cannot just hold it for somebody that has no track record with you, broke his wrist, and is just taking up everyone's time and wasting it essentially. So I think McLaren, they're proving that this is the organization you want to be in, and we're not afraid to let you go if you're not delivering. And I don't blame them for it because look, they got wins in F1, Formula E, IndyCar. They're becoming an organization where a lot of drivers are willing to take that risk, saying, I know I might get a short leash, so if I don't perform, I'm gone. But if I can perform, sky's the limit.
Yeah, that's very true, Joe, especially for any of the drivers that are now signing on with McLaren. It's like they have endless opportunities, not just in the motorsport series that they're signing on with, but in anything that McLaren's involved in. And that's really interesting for all of these new drivers that are coming into the team. But now taking a look at two of our IndyCar drivers, we have Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin, who had team members suspended from the push to pass controversy. Now, McLaughlin was eliminated in round 1 of qualifying, and Newgarden made it to the Fast Six. Newgarden said that it was business as usual at the press conference after qualifying, and he said that, I had some communication plans in place, but I was confident. So, Joe, will this race greatly impact McLaughlin and Newgarden with the missing crew members? What do you think?
I don't think it's going to. After hearing them in the press conference, seeing how Justin Newgarden didn't qualify, I mean, Scott McLaughlin only missed out on advancing just barely tenths of a second. So it's not like his team is struggling. Team Penske, I think this is where a lot of people were concerned about, are they taking these penalties serious enough? On paper, it looks serious. He just, took out some key members from those 2 teams. But it's not like they're replacing them with inexperienced, communications, strategists. They're still Team Penske. Overall, they're going to have notes, records. They can still talk to Tim Cindric and the others away from the track about this. So I think there's still going to be a threat to win this race weekend. Scott McLaughlin has a little bit of work ahead of himself to go from 13th up towards the front, but he could definitely do that. He has the speed. He has the car capable of doing that. Joseph Newgarden, he hasn't won exactly so much on road courses, but if he has anything like St. Petersburg, where he looks phenomenal, assuming he's not using push to pass, he's going to be really hard to beat. It's going to be a big battle up towards the front between Palou, the Penske drivers. Be really interesting to see what Christian Lundgaard with Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan can do up front. But I will not count on Team Penske. I feel overall, Team Penske, there's still potential winners of this race. And I think that's why still there's some people that are critical of Penske saying, are you really taking it seriously enough? Because on paper, these penalties look significant, but I will not be surprised if Joseph Newgarden is on the top set of the podium today.
Yep, now that's all for IndyCar. Later today will be the race, and we will recap it on Grid Live wrap up tomorrow. Joe, let us now do a quick recap of MotoGP and World Rally Championship.
Yeah, MotoGP, they're in France, side of the 24 hours of Le Mans. Of course, they're not doing the full circuit, the Bugatti circuit. And what a sprint race we saw. Jorge Martin took the race win this morning. Marc Marquez finishing second place. This is Jorge Martin's 12th sprint race win, and he is now 28 points ahead of Enea Bastianini and 29 points ahead of Pecco Bagnaia. So he's going to leave France with the points lead. Pecco will be starting tomorrow's race in second place. Martin, he will be the points leader regardless of what happened. Of course, he's on the pole. Marc Marquez, he finished second place in the race today, and he will be coming from 13th place after he missed out on getting into the final qualifying group. Maverick Vinales, he rounded out the podium today, coming home in third in his Aprilia. He'll be starting third in tomorrow's French Grand Prix, so that's another bike rider to be watching what he can do. Some other notables, Pedro Acosta, the phenomenal rookie, finished sixth place. Jack Miller was the highest finishing KTM factory rider, two positions behind in eighth place. Raul Hernandez with Trackhouse Racing and Fabio Quartararo were ninth and 10th. Of course, Yamaha not having that good of a season, where Trackhouse Racing, their first year, great effort for them this weekend. And Marco Bezzecchi, who was battling for the for the win today until he crashed out, he leads Alex Rins, Juan Mir, and Pecco Bagnaia as riders that crashed out today, did not finish, did not score valuable points. So MotoGP, that was the sprint race, a little bit of the preview. And World Rally Championship, we saw a dramatic World Rally Portugal. Kali Ravampera was leading today. He crashed out, rolled the car over, and he was done for today. Takamatsu Kasutra's car came to a stop on stage 2. A tough break for Toyota, losing two top contenders. In total, we have 9 stages today, and currently, Sebastian Ogier in that other Toyota is leading Autonic and Thierry Neuville. So you have Toyota, Hyundai, and Hyundai again in 4th place with Daniel Sordor. Adrian Formey is right now 5th, the highest Ford in World Rally Championship. So tomorrow, they still got plenty of stages. And of course, the final one, it will be interesting to see if Sebastian Ogier could get another win, or if Autonic or Thierry Neuville could get the win. Each are very interesting that still only one driver racing full-time has won the World Rally Championship. But let's switch over to NASCAR, where everyone's always talking about this track being one that's too tough to tame.
That's right, Joe. Taking a look at NASCAR, the NASCAR Cup Series is at Darlington, the Lady in Black. Joe, get ready for an exciting throwback weekend at the Goodyear 400, where several teams will be sporting a nostalgic throwback paint scheme. Now, the throwback was originally part of the Southern 500 weekend, which races under night conditions on a holiday weekend. NBC had the throwback race, and now it's on FS1 and a Sunday daytime race. So, Joe, is the race weekend missing something compared to when it was during the Southern 500?
I do feel like it is missing something since it switched from the Southern 500 to the spring date here. I think part of it is it's no longer on NBC. It's now on the cable channel, FS1. You look at what NBC was doing. Of course, this was a big holiday weekend for everybody. Labor Day weekend, the Southern 500, huge tradition. NBC went all out with the retro ads, bringing in Ken Squire, Ned Jarrett, Kyle Petty into the booth. They really, I think, helped sold the theme of their throwback race weekend. And of course, it was still new. So you had a lot more teams engaging in throwback schemes. Since the switch, though, I feel we have the same Fox Sports coverage, where it's on Big Fox, FS1. It's the same approach. Maybe you're going to see Clint Boyd dressed up in something vintage. Maybe. No sure thing. But I feel like it's just the same graphics. They don't really go full all out in covering this race and bringing that throwback feel. It just feels like another race. We got some special paint schemes. They might talk about it, but they're not going all out. I feel that has made it to where when it comes to the fans, the excitement level, they're not selling it to the fans as well as NBC did. Now, of course, the holiday weekend, Southern 500, as I mentioned, that's a huge tradition. So, of course, they just added onto it. But this race, it feels like it's trying to establish the identity as this is the throwback weekend. You have Goodyear sponsoring this. Of course, Goodyear, one of NASCAR's biggest partners. I feel like this could be a great race on Fox, to be honest. Darlington has provided some great racing up until last week. This is the race where we had the closest finish. Last week changed everything. Why can't we have this race on Fox Sports? I mean, excuse me, Big Fox instead of a Fox Sports One? I feel we are missing that sense of, of a connection for the TV audience. At the track, the atmosphere might be great still, where a lot of folks are still into the retro paint schemes, the throwback theme, but I feel there's a disconnect, and I think part of it is a lack of excitement from the Fox coverage. They just treat this as every other race and not going all out like NBC did. I would love to see that change because I think this is a big deal for a lot of teams. The sponsors, they get excited, they're enthusiastic about it. I think we need Fox to show that same enthusiasm and share it with the crowd so that way people will tune in saying, hey, I want to see some of these special retro paint schemes, especially if they're, as we say, the casual fan that watch occasional races. This is one to watch because Darlington puts on some great races, and I think really should be on broadcast, not cable.
Yes, definitely. Those are some great points, Joe. And now, if we look at some of the drivers, Kyle Larson is the favorite entering Darlington. They won the Southern 500 last year here and coming off the closest finish in NASCAR Cup Series history, and he is the points leader. Then, after Darlington, it's off to Indianapolis to prepare for the Indy 500 IndyCar race. So, Joe, would a good run at Darlington put him in a good spot entering Indy practice? What do you think?
I think it will put him in a phenomenally great spot if he wins Darlington and then goes towards Indianapolis. He loves just being behind the wheel, whatever it is, racing. To have that momentum that you just won at Kansas in the closest finish in NASCAR history, you're in the record book for that. If you can make it now 2 consecutive wins at Darlington, he won the Southern 500. He could easily win this race. He just needs to have a good race, a solid race, race the racetrack, not race the competition, as they say with Darlington. Then enter Indianapolis. He'll have all the confidence in the world because at Indianapolis, over in IndyCar, he's with Errol McLaren, Chevrolet Power, Hendrick sponsorship. There's no reason why he should not be able to qualify for this race. He should be in. You have to be the fastest 33 to get in. There's nobody's guaranteed. Fernando Alonso could tell you that. So I think he has to feel really good. We're starting to see all the merchandise, the excitement building around what he's doing with the Indianapolis and the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. This, I think, puts him to a spot where I still believe, compare him to Tony Stewart the first time he did this or the second time even, Kyle Larson is the best driver at the best state with the best equipment in both sides to potentially win one or both races. He could easily, I think, set the bar higher this year and win at Darlington. That's just going to spell confidence that, hey, Kyle Larson, he's a contender to win this race at Indy, at Charlotte, and really anywhere.
Yep. Now, Kyle Larson is the favorite, but there is another driver who's looking for a good performance, and that is Michael McDowell. He has had 3 top 10 finishes, including last weekend at Kansas. However, that did break a 6 race streak of 21st or worst finishing position. He will be in the 71 next year in a multi year deal, which is something he's never had. So, Joe, do you think this is a good business move, and where do you think Front Row will go?
I think this is a great business move for Michael McDowell. He has never had a multi-year deal. It's always been year after year, which we get with Front Row Motorsports. They're a smaller organization. Spire is climbing up. We're seeing what Carson Hocevar is doing. Corey LaJoy, he has some good races here and there, puts himself up towards the front, but just has not completed the deal. Zane Smith seems to be struggling a bit, but he's a rookie. I think a lot of people are still thinking he's going to have another seat in the Cup Series next year. So Spire Motorsport seems to be growing. There's always rumors that they could be potentially changing ownership with a team that's trying to get into F1. Of course, those are rumors, nothing confirmed yet, but that'd be a great opportunity for Michael McDowell to be aligned with this team because if he was to go out there, get a couple of wins next year, get into playoffs, that's just going to add more years to his racing career. Where with front row, being year after year, if he does not get a win this year, misses the playoff, this could be his last year there unless front row feels like we still got faith in you to get a win and you're still the best driver available to put us in victory lane. So this is a really smart business deal by Michael McDowell. Get himself secure in an organization that's going up, a multi-year deal. So if for some reason next year does not go that great, winless, you still got 2026 to go out there, get wins, try to compete and elevate that program up. The sponsorships we're seeing at Spire with Gainbridge, that's just, I think, adds a lot more to where Michael McDowell saw. He has a great relationship with Love's Truck Stop Fuel, but I think a partnership with Gainbridge, that's some elite companies that are sponsoring Colton Herta. They're involved in F1. If he could get a win with that with them as a sponsor, that'd be huge for his career as well too. So this was just, I think, a no-brainer move for Michael McDowell. Jump on this opportunity, extend your racing career to potential new heights where if you win with Gainbridge sponsorship, you're going to be the poster boy for Gainbridge. That's just, I think, a great business move for him for front row. I think the big thing, finding a good driver that could bring the results. I think it's risky to get a rookie, especially if they're only bringing sponsorship money. Don't go the route of Harrison Burton, for example. I think people are seeing that's not working out. But finding a solid driver that maybe someone that's, if Martin Truex Jr. does not want to run full-time, a part-time deal with front row, and then another rookie coming up, that could be an option. But it'll be interesting to see because I think the big mistake front row could do is get a rookie because of the sponsorship and they don't deliver. That could be a setback for the progress they're making overall.
Yep, definitely. And, this is going to be quite an advantageous deal for Michael McDowell. But now, if we take a look at some of the past winners at Darlington, we have William Byron and Eric Jones, who is back after an injury. Logano, Hamlin, Truex, and Brad Keselowski are also some of the past winners. Hamlin and Byron led the series in wins this year with 3 wins each. So, Joe, which driver is more likely to earn number 4 this weekend?
I'm looking at Denny Hamlin. He knows how to win here at Darlington. The big thing is having a good race, staying out of trouble. William Byron, yeah, he won here before, but I feel he's still not at that same level of Denny Hamlin when it comes to conquering the Lady in Black. Denny Hamlin, I think, is one of the best drivers out here. Really, in my opinion, probably one of the favorites. So overall, Denny Hamlin, I think he's going to go out there. He's going to be the driver that could control this race, win the stages. Just a matter of putting yourself in the right position to win the race. The other thing, too, Denny Hamlin has shown, especially at Kansas, he already has these wins. He's not afraid to be more aggressive to go for the win or go bust. I think he'll love to do that. Where with William Byron, I think he'll be more likely to play the points game because we saw what happened at Martinsville last year where he nearly got eliminated in the playoffs at Martinsville. He survived. I think him and Rudy will be focused more on let's get the stage points if we can, race win. If we could get it, great. If not, let's just settle in somewhere where Denny Hamlin, he's more likely to get that win, go for it. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Denny Hamlin can do and the rest of the field at Darlington.
Definitely. Now, that is all for NASCAR. Joe, I'll hand it back over to you to talk more about Pick a Winner, where we can finally get our picks in.
Yeah, we got a lot of races to make picks for. Let's bring up the leaderboard, which was updated after the Formula E race. Now, by 1 point, but several people and I moved up 1 position because I did get Nick Cassidy in the Formula E race. So really, not a whole lot of people left in contention for the 10 bonus points, so that'll continue on for another race weekend. Isha, let's start with Formula E Race 2 tomorrow morning. Who do you have winning that race?
For my pick, I'm going to go with Oliver Rowland for Formula E Race 2.
Oliver Rowland, podium today. Great pick. I think I'm going to go with Jean-Eric Vergne. He surprised me. I think he's going to be super motivated to try to go out there and get the win. Be interested to see what happens. And of course, MotoGP, they're in France, the Bugatti circuit. Who do you see winning that race?
MotoGP, I don't know. I had to think about this one a bit. I think I'm going to go with Jorge Martin for that.
Jorge Martin, sprint winner, trying to get the sweep. I think I'm going to go with Jorge too. He looked very good, especially holding off the competition. Jorge is my pick as well. IndyCar at Indianapolis later today. Who do you have winning that race?
IndyCar, I am going to go with Alex Palou.
Start on the pole. Can't hurt to go there. I'm going to go with the driver who's winless this year. And as Jackson said, the weak link is going to prove Jackson wrong. Will Power, I think, is going to get the win. And lastly, the NASCAR Cup Series at Darlington, the Goodyear 400. Who do you see winning that race?
For the NASCAR, I'm going to go with the man who's the favorite coming to the weekend, Kyle Larson.
I'm going to go with the other driver that a lot of people see as a favorite. I'm going to go with Denny Hamlin to win at Darlington. And we encourage everyone to comment with your picks and pick a winner. Today, a couple comments in the chat room from Adam with his pick a winners: Cassidy, Martin, Palou, and Kyle Larson. And throwback weekend for Southern 500. That was a fun weekend also. We'll see what all happens with NASCAR as they go forward. And of course, going forward, we encourage everyone subscribe to the Grid Network right here on YouTube. Hit the bell icon. Don't miss any of our programs. And be sure to read our articles at gridranking.com. Matthew Bro does some great work there, posting all the latest from across the motorsport world, particularly NASCAR. Call the show, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, invest in us each and every month. Thank you to you guys. You can get some Grid Network stickers if you sign up for our Patreon, and $10 or more through Buy Me a Coffee or YouTube Super Chat. And once again, we definitely are just grateful for everyone's support as we continue to grow over 1,000 subscribers right now, and a phenomenal team here to bring you great racing coverage. For Isha Azim and myself, Joe Samaniego, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races.